Big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Nowadays, when you go to your local butcher, you can get freaking amazing steaks like this one. And that's a very, very expensive one. Or you can get one that is lower grade like this one. But which one is the right one for you? This is a full-blood Japanese Wagyu ribeye. That means that all of the ancestors that were used to produce this piece of steak were Wagyu cows. Then you have the A5 quality. That means you basically have all intramuscular fat. Almost all of the real beef or meat is gone. If this warms up to my hands, it's going to be so soft that the fat is going to melt and make a nice creamy, rich feeling on my hands, and it's going to moisturize it. Most expensive moisturizer you'll ever have. And the funny thing is, these days you can get this at your butcher, your local butcher. This used to be very exclusive and you had to talk to a lot of people to get one of these. So now that you can have one of these and it's easily available, are you going to buy it? Or should you get something like this? This is also Wagyu. However, this is not from Japan. This comes out of Australia. And you can now get Wagyu out of Australia, Canada. We even have it in the Netherlands. And that's kind of cool because it means this is going to be more available. It's going to be cheaper, but it will never be 100% original Japanese Wagyu that came out of Japan. Well, in itself it's not a problem, but you can see the difference in the beef. You can see that there's way more meat and less fat. But what is going to be the difference between these two steaks? Let's fire up the grill and find out. I'll be using the Napoleon Prestige Pro 500, and this is my favorite grill. I put this together myself in the factory, and look at the giant surface that we have on this grill. Now I'm going to be cooking on a cast iron griddle plate like this. And there's a good reason for that, because this thing absorbs the heat that comes from down below from the grill, and it's going to soak up that heat, and then once I put that steak on, it's going to release that energy, caramelizing the outside of the steak. So let's close the lid, put on all 4 of the burners. I want this barbecue to be at around 250 degrees Celsius up to 300 degrees Celsius. Not much higher than that, because then we get too much heat on our steaks. We're gonna burn the outside and it's not gonna be cooked on the inside. The grill is now up to temperature, and so is the cast iron griddle. Now, do I put oil or beef tallow on this plate? In this case, it's not necessary, because our steaks are so fatty and have so much intermuscular fat that they're gonna fry themselves in their own fat, which is always the preference. If you add something else, like say sunflower oil or peanut oil or whatever oil you're using, you're always going to add flavor. Even with beef tallow, you're introducing a new flavor profile. Now it's time to get the steaks on, and they're pretty thick, so they're going to need a while. I'm just going to place them on without adding any oil, and listen to that sizzle. Now give them a little press so you're sure that they're making a good contact. All of the surface needs to make contact with that griddle. And instantly you see fat coming out. I'm going to do the same with the other steak. There we go. Making contact. Every now and then press it a little bit with your spatula, checking to make sure that it makes full contact. Now I'm also going to close the lid, because the inside of this steak needs to be done. It needs to be rare, but it needs to come up to temperature. So if I keep the lid closed, I keep the heat inside my gas barbecue, and I'm going to allow these steaks to cook. I don't have to worry about flare-ups. This is on a griddle plate, and therefore not add any bad flavor with burnt fat. I see a color change coming up in the steaks, and what I'm looking for is that brown crust at the bottom that's building up, and then I can see that they're getting a gray area right there. That means that steak is cooking and it's working. So I gotta flip them around and make sure that it cooks on the other side as well. And this is the spot that I was talking about. This didn't make full contact with that plate. Let's flip the Australian steak. But now you can see the difference between these two steaks. You got a much bigger fry on that Wagyu steak because there's way more fat in it. And here with the Australian steak, you have a good crust, but that is the crust of beef hitting cast iron plates without fat. I'm gonna close the lid again, and then I'm gonna check it with my thermometer and make sure I hit that core temperature of 52 degrees Celsius. I'm gonna let the steaks rest for a couple of minutes, and in the meantime I'm going to make a delicious shiitake stir fry, not on the main section, but on the side burner. Open the gas from the side burner, wait for 5 seconds and then hit the ignition, and then give the side burner a couple of minutes to warm up. And for that I'm gonna use the Skottsberg cast iron pan, and I'm going to let it come up to temperature. This thing is a beast. Normally I would use a wok for stir frying, but of course there's not a wok burner, but the heat that comes off the side burner is around 900 degrees Fahrenheit, almost to 1000 degrees. Now once that cast iron pan becomes that hot, it is almost as hot as a wok. So you get that wok type of flavor. In goes 100 milliliters of sunflower oil, 2 fresh chopped garlic cloves, a sliced spring onion, a red and green chili pepper, and you see how fast that goes? It is typical for wokking. Less than 10 seconds, it's ready for the shiitake mushrooms. 250 grams of it will do the job. And the cool thing about cooking on a barbecue on a sizzle zone like this is you can't find this type of heat inside your house cooking devices. So that is a unique feature, and it's giving a unique flavor to your dishes. Once the shiitake start turning soft, I'm adding 50 milliliters of soy sauce and 50 milliliters of oyster sauce. A little bit of sesame seeds, give it a quick last stir, and it's done. Oh, that looks good. Oh, sorry, gotta do the taste test. Pitmaster privilege. Oh. You wanna try it?
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Oh. Okay, let's go on.
Sprinkle on a little bit of finishing salt. And there we have it, the end result, a beautiful Wagyu steak that's gonna cost you around 300 euros or dollars. And then the steak that's gonna cost you around $100. Is it going to be worth it? Well, of course it's always based on opinion, but we can look at the facts. For instance, this steak has a deep, dark, fried crust. If we take a look at this steak, we have the same effect here on the rib cap, because it had more intermuscular fat on the rib cap, but on the eye side was less intermuscular fat, and we have less thick fried crust. Does that mean this steak is significantly better than that steak? Well, it depends on how you're eating it. Now we have a full rib-eye steak right here, which is at least a finger thick, and that means this is our style of eating beef. A big steak. That's how we like it here in Europe as well as in America, but not in Japan. There they eat with moderation. Well, there might be something there. We don't know. We lack a little bit of moderation. Let's slice into that $100 Australian Wagyu steak and take a look. Ooh, wow. That is one beautiful steak. Absolutely freaking gorgeous. You can still see the intermuscular fat sitting in that steak. Good amount of meat, that makes for an absolute gorgeous steak. Let's take a look inside that $300 Japanese Wagyu steak. Oh, I can already tell that this steak is a lot more tender. My knife just rolls through it like butter. And you see there's a lot more fat still inside this steak. But which one is best? You want Japanese or Australian? Oh, expensive dog. This is personal preference, but if you eat Japanese Wagyu like a European or an American, and you like thick steaks, and I believe they do it the same way in South America, then you rather have the leaner beef that you pay less for than you would have that big, junky Japanese fat. And that's gonna cost me 1/3 of the price. And as I'm Dutch, that's a good thing. And that's how I prefer my Australian Wagyu steak. Almost healthy. Almost.
No.
Dude, come on, the shiitake has antioxidants and the thing that you didn't see the shiitake whole TikTok thing?